Good morning and welcome back, ladies, gents and Pikachus, to another analysis and breakdown of the Quran of the Muslims. Not the Quran of the infidels, it's the Muslim one. So, once again, we're returning to break this thing down verse by verse into factual, logical statements in English so that you and I can understand who or what is Allah, what does he mean by the contents of his book here, and more importantly for us as non-believers, how is this going to affect our lives in the world today? So, before I start, as I always do, I'm going to tell you now, please buy and read one of these, an Arabic-only Quran, not an English one, which is the Quran of the Infidels. Don't use Quran.com and don't use a Google Translate. It's got to be this one, because this is the one written by Allah, and the other ones are written by men. And once you have done that, you'll recognise every single word I'm about to tell you now is 100% true of the words of Allah Akbar and what Muslims believe today. So, let's get started. If you've been watching the series, you'll remember the last few episodes we've been going through the book AL-NIISA, which is the book of women and children, and we were going through some of the rather rare tactics that Allah uses to indoctrinate and brainwash his poor Muslim children, principally the boys, but everyone really, into his cause of the holy jihad, killing all the infidels and returning their belongings and money back to the mosque. Why divine Allah would need human possessions and wealth, and why he has such a hate for his own creation, the infidels, which is like 80% of all people, I don't know. But what I do know is that the Quran of the Muslims describes exactly how Muslims are going to enact his will of the jihad of murdering everybody else on the planet. So that's what we're going to do now. So with that in mind, let's carry on where we left off with verse 80. Verse number 80. Whoever among you obeys Allah alone, we will say, this one obeys. However, whoso turns away shall have no guardian sent down to protect them, not any. End of verse. So, bearing in mind, this is instructions from the man to the women to tell the children. This is what you call a scare story. So if we break this down, what's happening here is we're telling the children, well, the mother is telling the children, if you obey only Allah, we will say, good boy, Jimmy Muhammad Muslim, you shall be protected by the angels and by Allah. Nothing bad will ever happen to you. However, if you turn away from the Quran of the Muslim teachings, then you shall have no guardian sent down to protect you, not any, i.e. your parents won't stick up for you, your brothers won't stick up for you, your Islamic government won't stick up for you, Allah and his angels won't stick up for you, you will be alone. And you'll still have to go and do the jihad, otherwise guess what will happen to you? Off with your head, Jimmy Mohammed, you are dead. That's what this means. And we carry on. 81. They say obedience sometimes, but then they go away from your presence and they change what you say. But Allah keeps records of all that is said and done each night. Do not depend upon them, but only depend on Allah. Allah is your guardian more so than all the others. End of verse. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. So, I think if we break this down, what Allah is actually saying here, through the mother and then the father has told the mother and the mother's telling the children, what the mother through the father is telling the children is they, not Allah and his angels, they saying obedience sometimes, not all the time, means it's not divinity. It's not Allah and his angels that are saying this. They means the parents and other Muslims. That's who they means here. So they say obedience sometimes, but then they go away from your presence and they change what you say. So Allah and his angels are saying through the mother to the child, don't trust your mother, father, brothers, imams, don't trust other people. Because sometimes they will say obedience, as in they will claim that they're doing the right thing by you in the words of Allah. They're doing the Quran of the Muslims instruction just as they're telling you to do. But then when you go away from their presence, they will change what you say. They're liars and hypocrites is what this is saying. But Allah knows. Allah keeps records of all that is said and done each night. So Allah at the end of each day goes, right, time to take records of what the kids have been doing, like Santa does. That's what this says. And then after he's taken the records of what has been said and done at the end of each day, he looks at them and he checks that you've been doing the right thing. And if you have done the right thing, you'll get your guardian. And if your guardians haven't done the right thing, they will lose their reward. They'll be punished. And then he caps off the verse by saying, do not depend upon them. You know, your parents are the Muslims and your imams and your friends and your brothers. Don't depend upon them because obviously they're big sinners and fornicators. And Allah knows because he's keeping the records. That's what this is saying. Depend only upon Allah. Allah's your guardian more so than the others. End of verse. So the children are being told here, A, get yourself ready to go to the jihad. B, don't worry about being killed. Just get ready for the jihad. C, even though sometimes other people are going to try and defer you, like your mum and dad who love you are going to say, openly say, Jimmy Mohammed, that you're going to go and do the jihad, but secretly we're going to try and ferry you out the country. No, if they say that, ignore them. Allah's your guardian. Don't trust these guys. Allah's going to punish them for having done that and you won't escape. Get ready for the jihad. There's no other option for you, Jimmy Mohammed. Get ready to do it and rat on your parents because Allah will know. That's what I'm reading here. Allah is your guardian more so than the others who are your mum, dad, brothers and imams. This is socialism all over, isn't it? This is Allah saying, who do you trust, Jimmy? Is it your family? Is it your friends? No, is it Allah? Yeah. Disgusting. But that's what they have to do because Allah has decreed it in his Quran of the Muslims. I'm pretty sure actually the Quran of the Infidel, this one written in English and on Quran.com, has something similar in here as well. But it will miss out the part about the jihad being the main cause, and it will say something like, but you're just a caretaker, you're just there to mow the lawn of the infidels, don't kill them. Or it will do something sneaky like, there was another previous bit that said, we're going to punish the Sabbath keepers. But then in this one it says, we will punish the Sabbath breakers, which is like the opposite group. So that's why Quran of the Infidels, no. Quran of the Muslims, yes. And that verse in the Quran of the Muslims, 81, is expressly Allah saying to the children, even though your parents are telling you this, they're reading it out the Quran of Allah. And so you're not to trust your parents or your brothers or your imams. You're only to trust Allah. He's your guardian, more so than the others. That's what this means. 83. Oh no, 82. Sorry, I missed one out. 82. Do they forget or not even consider this Quran? If it was from any other source but from Allah himself, it would not be so perfect and contain many mistakes and inconsistencies, but none can ever be found. End of verse. Allah! Allah, come here, Allah! Allah! You can't get here now, Allah. I won't have any of this disobedience. Allah, where you've said it would not be so perfect if it was not from you, and it would contain many inconsistencies and errors. Do you remember a few episodes ago you couldn't remember when you gave the Book of Wisdom, the Torah, or who you gave it to? Do you remember that? Do you remember you said first you gave it to Moses, then later on you said you gave it to Abraham 500 years before that, and then later on you said actually it was neither one, you said you gave it to Jesus, son of Allah. Do you remember that? And then later on than that you said anyone who reads an earlier book such as the Torah is evil because the guy who wrote it's evil. Do you remember that? No, you don't remember any of that. Oh, why am I not surprised? Okay, go away and have a think about it, see if you can remember, and I'll question you again later. Alright? Okay. So Allah is saying here in number 82 that if he hadn't written the Quran himself and it wasn't from divinely inspired all-knowing Allah, it wouldn't have any, it'd be perfect. It doesn't have any mistakes or inconsistencies. And he's saying, did they not forget and not consider this Quran when they're off not obeying me? And, I'm telling this is the parents being told. When the parents are off disobeying me, O child, and you're having to listen to them, and I'm telling you, only listen to me, don't listen to your parents, did they forget that the Quran is completely perfect and has no mistakes in it? And I just thought it might be worth bringing up the first mistake that comes to mind of the multitude of mistakes I have found within it, such as Allah forgetting who he gave the Book of Wisdom, the Torah, to, and then actually admitting later on that it wasn't even him that did it at all, because he says, whoever reads earlier books such as the Torah is evil because the one who wrote the books is evil. So either he's saying he's evil, and he did in fact write the books, but then he forgot who he gave it to, or he was lying about giving it to anyone, and it was a Jew that wrote the book, i.e. Moses. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a mistake. That is not divinely inspired perfection, as Allah is claiming here. But unfortunately for the Muslim children, they're not going to know this because they're children being taught through the line of succession from Allah to the Imam, to the father, to the mother, to them. And they're not allowed to argue. So if we break it down, what that means is Muslim children are being told, follow this rather than your parents, brothers and imams, because this is perfect. And if it wasn't perfect, they'd find mistakes and inconsistencies in it, but none have ever been found. Apart from by me, after like a few months of reading it. So they're being told that they're following a perfect book from a perfect God and a perfect command. But as we know, they're following a perfect mess, full of mistakes and inconsistencies, written by a mad, caravan-robbing warlord who was also a child molester, who is Mohammed. It would not be so perfect if it wasn't from Allah, and may contain many errors and inconsistencies, but none are found. Note to self, do a video in future called The Many Mistakes and Inconsistencies Found Within the Quran. And we move on. 83. He's such a sneaky guy. Bearing in mind that I just questioned him and I have already found tons of mistakes in it, 83 starts, and those who search for error, they are only confused by matters that are not concerning them. Whether insecurity or fear, they spread it to others. They should report these only to Allah and to Muhammad. Ungratefuls! If it were not for Allah and his bounty and his mercies, you would all be following Satan, but only a few. End of verse. So do you see what he's done there? This is yet another correction, because he realises in the last verse he's made an error, but he can't be bothered to go back and say, actually, my divinely inspired perfect word of Allah has mistakes within it. So then he issues a correction, but he tries to make it sound like it's not a correction. He's just shoring up something he earlier said. So let's break it down. Them who are searching for error, those who are searching for error should be, them is the correct, not the correct participle. The participating word should be those who are searching, not them. So there's another mistake for you. I'll correct it for him. Those who are searching for error are only confused by matters not concerning them. So when I'm finding lots of errors in your Quran, oh Allah, I'm just confused. That's what he's saying here. He's saying those that find error, it's them that's making the error, not Allah. Whether insecurity or fear, they spread it to others. So because I'm finding mistakes, I'm spreading it to others. The only reason I'm doing this is because I'm arrogant in my security, or I'm terrified in fear. I'm not doing it because it's actually correct and I'm trying to spread the truth. Oh no. Only Allah can do that, not us simple-minded humans, because remember, he knows everything, we know nothing, and if we have any questions or arguments, off with your head, you're dead. So that's what he's saying here. Then he finishes off the verse by saying, you should report these only to Allah and his messenger Muhammad. So if you find a mistake, even though there are no mistakes, and Allah's just told you if there were mistakes, they would have been found already because it's perfect. But if you do find a mistake, don't report it to other people because of their fear of other things happening to them and their arrogance, their security. Report it only to Allah in the heavens and Muhammad, who is also dead, so he's not around. So report it to Thin Air if you find any mistakes. Thin Air will deal with it for you. Definitely don't be telling any humans, and definitely don't be bringing it to your parents and saying, hang on a minute, this is wrong, because then you'll be disobedient. You will not be following Allah, you will be an infidel, and there will be no protection for you, Jimmy Mohammed the child. And then he finishes off by saying, ungratefuls! If it were not for Allah and his bounty and his mercies, you would be following Satan right now. So I think we can pretty much tell from this that Allah knows that his book is not only full of inconsistencies and mistakes, but children are going to question it as soon as they're being told it by their parents. So what does he do? He says, don't trust the parents, only trust Allah. Thusly, the mistakes must be coming out of the parents, not from here. And if you find any more mistakes past the ones your parents are trying to cover up for you, don't bring it to your parents. Bring it to Allah and to Muhammad, and then everything will be fine. And if you don't, you're ungrateful, because if it wasn't for Allah, you'd be following Satan right now. This is like when your parents say, eat your dinner or you're ungrateful. Eat your peas or you're ungrateful. Even though you're stuffed or you don't like peas, if you don't do it, you're ungrateful. It's a false narrative, a fallacy. So of course Allah has to do this because he has made so many previous mistakes and errors and inconsistencies in his divinely inspired book. But we're not allowed to argue it, we're not allowed to have doubts or questions, otherwise we are infidels and we are not being good Jimmy Mohammed and we won't get our reward. We certainly won't be getting our 72 virgins later on after the jihad. So we better just keep shtum and do what we're told. Blind obedience, that's what this is. And that's what that means. And we carry on. 84. It means you must wage war in Allah's cause of jihad. You must forever provoke others until they believe in Allah, and not lay burdens upon the other Muslims. Perhaps Allah will weaken the infidels for your jihad, for Allah causes the strongest torment and has the strongest will for revenge. End of verse. Well, I think we can pretty easily figure out what this one means. So this has been a very simple page so far, hasn't it? It means, i.e., the fact that it's got no mistakes in it, but if you find any, you're not allowed to tell anyone. You have to just tell thin air. What that means, and that if you didn't have this book, you'd be following Satan. What that means is you must wage war in Allah's cause of his holy jihad, O young Jimmy Mohammed. Did you get that, child? If you have a studious mind for details, and you'd probably be really good at English, maths and science, what that actually means is you have to go and fight the jihad against the infidels. That's directly what this is saying. You must forever provoke others until they believe in Allah. Like, think about what that means. Provoking someone is like annoying them, or winding them up, or bullying them or something. You must wind up and provoke and bully others until they believe in Allah's guidance. Because he told you to, not because you're thinking about the mistakes he's made. You know, you're not allowed to mention those. And then you must not lay burdens upon other Muslims. So what that means is you lay your burdens upon the infidels, not other Muslims. Because the other Muslims are struggling to believe in this stuff just the same as you are, Jimmy Mohammed. So put your burdens elsewhere, please. Thank you. And you'll be fine. You won't be an infidel. That's what Allah's saying. He's saying any problems are not his fault. They're the parents' fault. Any burdens this creates on you, bring them elsewhere, but don't bring them to other Muslims who will have the same burdens as you. We're putting them all at the feet of the Jews and Christians. It's their fault, and we're going to kill them anyway, so the burdens will die with them. That's what this means. And then he finishes off by saying, Allah will weaken the infidels for your jihad. So don't worry about those infidels, oh Jimmy Mohammed and class. We'll weaken them. They'll be easy to be. Yeah, don't worry about dying. It'll be a piece of cake to... nearly swore there. It'll be a piece of cake to beat them in this jihad we're going to have. Because Allah will weaken them, although it doesn't sound very sure because he says perhaps Allah will weaken them. So it's going to be based on how obedient you are, Jimmy Mohammed. If you weren't obedient enough, Allah will will for your defeat and you will die at the hands of the infidel and you won't get your virgins. But if you've been obedient, he will victory for you and weakness upon the infidel. Then you'll kill them, then you'll die later, and then you will get your 72 virgins and your great bounty. And he finishes off by saying, the reason for this is because Allah causes the strongest torment and has the strongest will for revenge. So now we hear it straight from the horse's mouth. Allah's jihad is in fact not a cause of morality. It is in fact not caused by anything good. It's caused by his anger, his cause for strong torment on the Jews and Christians, and his will for revenge. And if we know, because we've been watching previous videos, the revenge isn't on the children of Israel, even though they're the targets of the jihad. It's on God who cannot be harmed by Allah. He wants to get revenge on God for kicking him out of the Garden of Eden, so he's making his own one deep below the ground. He's misleading all of God's creatures, the children of Israel, and he's doing this using his slaved Muslims by threatening them with death by Satan and misleading them into hell, which he's going to create on earth by killing everyone in his holy jihad, which his children are being brainwashed with at an early age. So there's no way they're going to argue with it, and if they argue with it, off with your head, you're dead. That's what this means. And that brings us to 85. And mindful be you all, Allah is keeper over all things. If you obey him and cause good for him, a portion of that good shall you keep. But if you resist Allah and do evils, a portion of evil Allah shall give you, because Allah sees and knows all you do. End of verse. So if we break this one down, Why, after ordering you to wage war against the infidels, after blaming them for all the problems that you find, and if it's not their fault, if there's any problems with your Quran, surely it's your mum and dad and the imams that caused it, not divine Allah, because he doesn't make any mistakes apart from the one that I described. But, you know, that's someone else's fault, not his. That's the Jews that did that. Now he's saying, be mindful you all. So think clearly when you do everything and what you say. And the reason you're having to think clearly is because Allah's the keeper of all things. So don't take anything that's not yours. Don't do anything that Allah hasn't told you to do. Don't even think a thought that Allah hasn't given you, because all things are kept by Allah. He'll know. He's going to see. If you obey him, that's causing good. And therefore, a portion of that good will go back to you, young Jimmy Mohammed, and you'll be patted on the head and everyone will love you. However, if you do not do that, and you resist Allah and do evils, you know, anything outside of this book is considered a great evil. So if you're not following this, anything else you do is evil, such as listening to music, watching films, playing computer games, being friends with an infidel, or not following Allah's commands to the letter, not blindly obeying. If you do those things, you are resisting Allah and doing evil, and a portion of evil shall be upon you. And there's no way you'll get away with it, because remember, Allah's keeping records at the end of every night of everything that's said and done. Allah will know I'm watching you, Jimmy Mohammed, and that's why you better obey me, not your parents, because I will be the one that gets your parents to punish you, Jimmy Mohammed, if you're not worshipping sufficiently and doing everything I tell you to do for the cause of the holy jihad, which is the war against everyone else on earth. Oh child, because remember, this is mother teaching child. That's what that means, and that brings us to our final verse of the day, or the morning. 86. When you greet a strong greeting, you must return it with the same strength or even greater. Allah watches to keep account of you and how obedient you are to him. End of verse, end of reading. Now, this could be interpreted two ways, but I'm going to break it down in context of the rest of the verses on this page and the rest of AL-NIISA, which is all about the jihad. So what I'm supposing, even though it's not expressly written in the language, when you greet a strong greeting, you must return it with the same strength or even greater. He's not talking about saying hello louder than people say hello to you. He's talking about the jihad greeting. When you greet the infidels in battle, if they're fierce, you must be fiercer. If they shoot you once, you shoot them twice. If they punch you once, you punch them twice. Everything they do to you, you do back more, even if it means your death. That's what this means. When you greet a strong greeting, you must return it to the same strength or even greater. You don't put strength into a vocal greeting, do you? There's no physical strength in a vocal greeting. That's how we know he's talking about the jihad greeting, greeting the infidels in the jihad after school. So that's how he starts, and he says, return it with the same strength or even greater. Allah watches to keep account of you. Remember, he's writing this report card on you every night, oh Jimmy Mohammed. And in the report is how obedient you are to him. And we know your obedience directly influences the reward you're going to get. Whether you get access to 72 virgins, whether you have a guardian, whether your parents survive, whether you get fed at the end of the day and at the start of the day, and whether you have a good life or a really horrible bad life. So just remember, oh Jimmy Mohammed, I'm watching you. You better do everything I tell you, and you'll know everything I tell you because it's in this book, the Quran of the Muslims. Time for bed now, Jimmy. Good night. Sleep well. And little Jimmy's in bed going, having nightmares about jihads and parents dying and starving and not getting 72 virgins. And then the last thing he thinks before he goes to bed is, virgins. Just keep thinking about the virgins and you'll be okay. That's the Quran of the Muslims. And I guarantee you that's how children think about it. I know, I've been a young boy. When you're in bed, if you've got worries, it keeps you awake at night. And the thing that's going to send you off to sleep and make you forget those worries is going to be 72 virgins. Now, I didn't have 72 virgins as a concept, as an ideal. Nobody told me I was going to have 72 virgins when I was young. But the female touch was the thing that put me off to sleep when I had sisters or my mother come in and sake my worries and make me feel better just by saying nice words to me and being comforting and caring. And then when I was older, it was girlfriends. These guys don't get any of that. They're married off early, so it's going to be one of their many wives. Or before that, it's going to be the 72 virgins. Or it's going to be fornication, which they won't be telling anyone about. Because off with the head, you're dead if you do that. And most of the time you are going to be thinking about the jihad, which is how you get the virgins. So this whole indoctrination is based upon over-sexualizing children in order that you can panic them into hysteria to go and kill the infidels for the cause of Allah, the holy jihad, and the point of the religion of peace. Killing everybody else. So, that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed that one. I thought that was a blinder myself. But I'll be back at 4:15 with another one, so I'll see you back then. Until then, God bless, have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now. I wonder if there's any Scottish Muslims. Can you imagine this being said in a Scottish accent? Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked now. We're back at 4:15, so I hope you enjoyed that. God bless, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next Without Lies, Islam Dies. See you next time. Bye now. Bye bye bye.